welcome to Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark, and today we're joined by the head honcho at Bar None Records and founder of Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help, Glenn Morrow. We talk about his career in music as a musician, as well as head of a record label. He's worked with some great bands and former guests like the Mendoza Line and L1011, and Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help has just released their second album. We discussed the new difficulties releasing music during the COVID era, both from the musicians and the label's perspectives. Follow Glenn and Bar None on social media. Follow us at Performance ANX. And if you like the show, consider getting us a cup of coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Subscribe, rate, review, and let's get right into Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help on Performance Anxiety on Pantheon Podcast Network.
You got it. Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Glenn Morrow, and I'm in a band called Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help. We have our second album is called simply Two, and when you have a name like Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help, you need a short album title. And take it away. It's just an audio thing, right?
Right, so. Yeah, audio only, so it's nice and easy. Lighting doesn't matter.
I know, I just get that like glow in my glasses from the monitor.
Me too. So, oh man. In fact, now I'm looking at these, I gotta clean these. Oh, God, let me just keep them off. Oh man, so how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I just checked out a couple of your podcasts.
Oh, awesome.
I was happy to see L1011 and Mendoza Line, both bands that I've worked with. And
awesome.
And the Mendoza Line, I was in hysterics. I always wanted someone to do a whole podcast series on them because I think their story is just so insane. And,
they're one of those bands that back when they were active, I knew of them, but I didn't get into them. I didn't know about them. And now going back and listening, the music is awesome, but this, like you said, the story is just crazy. It's like they just seem to sabotage themselves at every chance possible.
Oh, yeah. But they're also at the same time, some of my favorite people that I've, worked with.
Oh, awesome.
On a human level, I'm still friends with all of them. And,
that's good.
You can't say that. I mean, not like I'm enemies with other bands, but, right. You work with a band and then, your time ends and you go off and live your lives. But I've stayed in touch with Tim and recently got reconnected with Pete and as well as we did a couple records with Shannon after the band broke up too. So
cool.
Actually, we've done records with Tim. So
thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I've been listening to the new album and been really enjoying it.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks. We worked on it a really long time. It was very spent a lot of time just getting the songs just right, and then it was pretty much done right as the pandemic kicked in.
Oh, geez.
And actually, there's a song you haven't heard that we've just added to the record. I'll make sure you get it.
Oh, cool.
That I just thought, I got to have something new on there. And, Chris Stamey remixed one song, and that sort of made one song kind of new.
Yeah.
Because he switched it up a lot. And but then I just recorded another song just with the guitar player in a socially back in the same studio, but doing everybody in a little room by themselves.
Oh, wow. Everybody isolated, huh?
Yeah. But the cool thing was we did it from, the whole thing in like 3.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
I taught them the song and we came up with an arrangement that totally shifted from what I thought it was going to be to what it ended up being. And
cool.
It was kind of cool.
That's really
so it felt
wild.
like a way forward in a way, it felt like I've been woodshedding for 11 months. This is what I learned. This is, sort of, it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, before we get too deep into it, I want to know a little bit more about how you got to where you are. So, what got you into music in the first place? Was there a lot of music playing in the household when you were growing up?
There wasn't. My dad had been big into music, but I think, he had like all these 78s like jammed up in the top of a closet and then, we had like the records like everybody had who had parents my age, which was like Herb Alpert, Whipped Cream and Other Delights.
Yep.
And maybe some Frank Sinatra. And actually there was a radio station, WNEW FM or AM in New York that he used to listen to. And they used to play this guy, Louis the Cab Driver had this record. You find it's on YouTube. Louis the Cab Driver, and the song was called I Got a Rose Between My Toes from walking barefoot through the hothouse to you, pretty baby.
Oh, wow.
It's quite a number.
I'll have to see if I can work that into this show somehow.
I got a rose between my toes from walking barefoot through the hothouse to you, pretty baby. I got a torn right near my corn from walking barefoot through the hothouse to you. And when I fell into the tomatoes, I seen her heart skip a beat. I knew that love was born when she pulled a torn of the flower out of my feet. I didn't even feel no pain
I just, kind of discovered AM radio around the time of like, I don't know, Ruby Tuesday and Snoopy and the Red Baron and stuff like that was playing probably like 65, maybe 6. I actually kind of missed, the Beatles, like the way everybody was into the Beatles. Like, I was kind of suspicious of them until about Yellow Submarine and Magical Mystery Tour. That's because I was like the oldest kid, and my father wasn't into them, and I was like, okay.
Well, that's when I actually really start to like the Beatles myself. Those albums, the early stuff. I mean, it's good, but it's not the stuff that I go to and listen to.
I've gone back now. I love it all, and you can revisit it all. And in some ways, the earlier songs, just as constructions, are better. Not production wise. The production got more evolved, but just solid kind of pop songwriting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Revolver is probably my favorite Beatles album.
Oh, yeah. That's an amazing album.
The English version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with the extra...
with the extra tracks.
Yeah. Now, when they released those recently, they remastered them. It's all pretty much the same now, right? They put all the extra stuff on there at this point, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, it's too much now. Like, I just, Abbey Road with all the, 5 versions of Her Majesty. I don't know. I don't know how many times I would listen to that.
Yeah. So did you start off by playing guitar, or how did you get into actually playing instruments?
I think when I was a kid, my sister was a really good piano player, classical. So I kind of avoided, I was a little intimidated by the piano, but there was a nylon string acoustic guitar in the house. And, eventually I learned to play like, a couple of songs. But really I sort of had like a fantasy of making music and imagining, I was jumping around my room making music. But it wasn't until I got to college that I actually started attempting to really learn chords. And I wrote a few songs, as a kid. But in college I started, trying to, it seemed like something that became an obsession pretty quickly.
And is that when you started playing in bands and playing out and gigging?
Yeah, kind of just, I went to the University of Rhode Island for 2 years. We had a band called the Jaded Lovers that was kind of, inspired by the Modern Lovers, I think.
Okay.
But it didn't sound like the Modern Lovers. But punk rock hadn't really, it was like, before, punk rock and the Ramones and Patti Smith. So it was more 70s hippie folk mixed with the Velvet Underground or something.
Oh, wow.
Although we did do Talking Heads, Love Goes to a Building on Fire, because I saw them really early on. And
cool.
I had like a demo of theirs.
Oh, wow.
Because I was helping them try to get gigs. So I learned Love Goes to a Building on Fire. Probably the first person to ever cover the Talking Heads song, I think.
That's awesome. So you were out
when they were a trio.
So you were out and experiencing live music as well as gigging and learning guitar.
Yeah. The first show, well, I don't know how much you want to get into all this, but
Oh, I love hearing about people's first shows.
To was Allman Brothers with Dwayne.
Wow.
And it was like days before the Fillmore East live. Oh. So I literally was at the South Mountain Arena in New Jersey, in South Mountain ice rink.
Oh my gosh.
And they were wheeling those those road cases that are on the cover of the Live at the Fillmore record.
Yeah, yeah.
And I touched one of those road cases. Little did I know, that was like, and then they were on in the middle. The opening band was Edgar Winter's White Trash, and the headliners were Buddy Miles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was my first concert.
That's amazing. That's a hell of a way to break into it.
Yeah.
Man, first show you get a 25-minute mountain jam.
Yeah. Right. I already had the Donovan version. So.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So when did you start actually thinking this could be something that you wanted to do?
I went, when I was at URI, I was like, I knew I wasn't going to make it there 4 years. It just didn't feel like where I wanted to be. And I really felt I grew up in New Jersey, so I really felt the pull of Manhattan once I kind of removed myself from its orbit, even though it wasn't like I went into Manhattan all the time as a kid. But at any rate, I felt the pull, and, I'd be reading like the Village Voice ads and reading Rock Scene magazine and reading about, television, the Ramones and Patti Smith. And, each one of those things, when they came out, they were just like revelations. Yeah. And John, you see a picture of Jonathan Richman, you're just like, I want to know what that, I want to know what is that? I want to know what that is. Yeah. And there were so few records. Then I went and saw television at CBGB's and Talking Heads. And wow. Yeah, I was down at CBG, saw all the bands down there, and Peru at Max's, and cool. Sid Vicious hanging out at the bar. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, the Heartbreakers at Max's. So I saw all that stuff. But I was like the kid kind of peering, into the future. But eventually got this band going sort of by accident. I sat in with a band called Tin Can. And like I said, I actually attempted to book Talking Heads. Yeah. Because they didn't really have a booking agent. They really hadn't played outside of New York City. And I went up to like RISD, where they had been students, to try to get like the school to do a show, Yeah. It seemed like a no-brainer. Yeah. And the guy, there was some kind of sort of professor who was somehow in charge of the whole thing. He was like, and I had all these clippings, like pictures of them with Warhol, and all this stuff. I'm like, come on, what do you think? And they're like, we don't really do popular music. And I was like, wait a minute, man, you did the Paul Winter consort. And he's like, that was a mistake. Oh. Yeah, the Paul Winter concert was a bridge too far.
Oh, my God. Oh, geez. So you're deciding that this is something that you want to do.
Yeah, I was writing more songs all the time, and I met this band Tin Can, which had Rob Norris, who was actually in like a late version of the Velvet Underground with Doug Yule. Oh, wow. After Lou had left. Yeah. And he was in this band Tin Can, and we became friends, and we kept seeing each other. I'd go see James Brown, and he'd be there. I'd go see Philip Glass, he'd be there. Oh, wow. And so I sort of wormed my way in and said, hey, maybe you guys could back me up and do some recording on these songs. So then the guitar player maybe was slightly offended because he was the guy that wrote the songs in Tin Can, and he quit. Oh. And then we spent a long time trying to put a band together. We finally found Richard Barone, and that band was called A. But then I was gently nudged out after about a year. And they became the Bongos, which was a Hoboken band. And at any rate, then I formed a band called The Individuals in around 1979.
He said the docks are dark and the warehouses wear me out.
that, toured all over the country, played with REM.
Oh, wow.
Played with David Johansen, X.
Oh, nice.
Lena Lovitch. Just
it goes on and on.
Yeah. The Cure. We opened for the Cure the first time they came to America.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of cool.
That's pretty wild.
And then that band broke up. I had a band called Rage to Live. Got a video, and that was the beginning of Bar None. That was actually the first Bar None release.
Okay.
This Tom Prendergast, who had been a bartender at Maxwell's, the club where all these bands kind of, came to fruition.
Right.
Feelies, Yola Tango, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Bongos. Tom Prendergast started Bar None. He wanted to put out my record. And,
okay.
But at that point, I'd kind of like done all this touring. And I was just like, sorry you put money into that video, but I don't really want to go on the road. I just got married. It's really hard to get I couldn't get all the guys that were on the record to commit, and I didn't really have the money to make them commit.
Yeah.
And it was, the individuals had been more of a democracy. We were all in it kind of together.
Okay.
And this was more like, my project, I guess. So it was kind of just, I realized how difficult it was. And I said, sorry, you put money into that video, but how about I become your partner? I found this band. I think they're pretty good. And that was They Might Be Giants.
Oh, wow.
So I still am kind of amazed that as I was telling him, I was kind of like burning him.
Yeah.
He let me become his partner. And so
that's some good salesmanship right there.
I think so. We're still great friends. He left the company and moved back to Ireland. Maybe it's been a long time now, 15, 18 years, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I've been running with a couple other folks, Mark Lipsitz and Mike Sansevier, and a variety of other people coming and going. And it goes on. So
I want to ask you a little bit more about Maxwell's, because I grew up in New Jersey, and I didn't go to Maxwell's a lot, but I had been there. And the place was an institution. It was a really cool place, but how did it become the institution that it became? Why did people come to Hoboken to go play in a bar?
Yeah, right. I know. It seems kind of amazing. I was living right around the corner from the place, and a friend of mine from high school had also moved to town, and she said, I just saw they had waitress jobs, and she said, and they're looking for bands. I'm like, what? We were playing out at the place in Dover, New Jersey up at that point. Actually, there I played on a bill with opening for Richard Hell and the Voidoids, and the opening band was the Misfits.
Oh my God.
So that was crazy.
Wow. Jeez.
But yeah, and I went in and Steve Fallon was there, and he was fighting with his brother-in-law about taking all the Frank Sinatra records off the jukebox because he wanted to make a statement in Hoboken where you couldn't have a jukebox in Hoboken without Frank Sinatra records.
Right, yeah.
And we just sort of hit it off, and I said, yeah, I know a lot of bands, because I was working for New York Rocker magazine.
Okay.
And, basically it's like, yeah, great. Maybe you can, I helped him fill the jukebox. I got a bunch of records for him. And I was the first person to book the club, actually. And,
oh, wow.
I think I got paid like in dinner. I get like a dinner.
It's a good chicken parm.
I booked the DBs and the Necessaries and the Flesh Tones and a band called Come On and maybe Nervous Rex. Anyway, I did it for a while. And then once Steve, I think Steve then was like, okay, I got this now. I'll take over.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, he let us, the individuals, rehearse in the back room before it had, we rehearsed it for years. It was great.
Oh, cool.
Suddenly I remember one day, just like everybody that I knew from New York was suddenly living in Hoboken. All the musicians, people would hear about it, and they literally came from, all over the country to live there. And, there were just a ton of bands living there. I mean, it was really Williamsburg before Williamsburg.
Yeah.
And then eventually, it's become a lot more gentrified, and, the bands kind of all more or less have disappeared, except for a few stalwarts.
Right. Yeah, David Schramm's still over there.
Dave Schramm, yep, indeed.
So he's holding on, but then Maxwell's closed a few years ago.
Yes.
And what did that do to you were saying that the community was starting to dwindle. Was it because of that, the musicians kind of going elsewhere, or was it? Yeah,
I think it was, Todd Abramson, who ran the club, was frustrated because, it was hard to park. There were noise complaints. I mean, he didn't feel like he got all that much support from the city, and heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, they've got an incredible page on Facebook where there's all kinds of shows. People talk about the shows they saw, and they throw set lists out there and recordings. It's just I mean, I saw The Replacements, REM, Soundgarden, Flaming Lips, Sonic Youth, Big Black. The Feelies, obviously, they sort of became part of the early part of the scene. Obviously, Yola Tango. Husker Du. Oh yeah. If you ever,
Bob Mould was like, that was like his clubhouse. Him and Steve were super tight, and he'd be hanging out there all the time. Golden Palominos.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I could go on.
Yeah, it was a place where where bands would go. It seems like just before they hit it big, they were at Maxwell's.
Yeah.
And there are a ton of tapes out there that people are sharing from these incredible bands. These bands are enormous. Like you're saying, REM, Soundgarden, Husker Du, Big Black, bands that are legendary.
Yeah, New Order.
Jeez.
Right after Ian Curtis committed suicide.
Yeah.
New Order came over.
Wow.
It was like kind of like fresh in the air almost.
That's great. Yeah, I had Peter Hook's son on not too long ago, Jack Bates. So little connection there, but it was amazing to see the list, because there's a pretty extensive list on their Facebook page of bands that have played there, and it's very long. It's not.
It survived longer than CBGB's, probably longer than the Bottom Line. It was probably the longest running, rock club in the area. I don't think anything,
right.
Some folk clubs that lasted longer, but they were more just like, cattle call joints. It was always like sort of an aesthetic, to the way they put the shows together there. And, and it was just far enough removed from New York that they could get the bands that were going to do a show in New York, like a few days before or after, and it wasn't considered competition often. I think that probably got harder later on, but then I got to play I said to Todd when he was shutting the whole thing down, I said, why don't you have the first bands that ever played the club, which was this band A that with me and the bongos. So the final night of the club was the Individuals, the bongos, and A all played. And, and that's what really got me like wanting to make music myself again, because it was like, whoa, I'm back, the adrenaline is flowing. Yep. It's like, now what do I do? And they packed the whole place. The streets were full of people. Couldn't get into the club. They had DJs outside.
Man.
And although then Justin Timberlake did a Target commercial a few weeks later and had about 10 times as many people. So that was humbling. It's like this.
It's hard to compete when you mix Justin Timberlake and Target.
Yeah, right. That's some branding.
Justin Timberlake is the Target of music. So,
but yeah, so then I just started writing songs again, and I was like, I kind of thought of the replacements, like the first 3 guys that I can get to commit, that's going to be the band, and
awesome.
Mike Rosenberg, who'd been a doorman at Maxwell's and played with Amy Rigby and different people, he signed up for bass, and Rick Sherman, who hadn't played since he'd been like in wedding bands, but hadn't really played in many years, but he was our CD sales rep.
Oh, wow.
And he's a great player. In fact, his son is a really remarkable jazz drummer that during the pandemic, I go and see him play on the streets, and people throw money into his bass drum suitcase.
Oh, wow.
And it's great. He's like, a great, puts these great jazz groups together just on the fly, and they play like Columbus and 73rd Street, and then they pop up somewhere else. It's cool.
That's wild.
That's really been sustaining me lately. And then Ron Metz, who had been in the Human Switchboard, another band that lived in Hoboken for a long time.
Yep.
He became the drummer, and we were off to the races. And so just finished our second album.
Now, with the first album, were those all new songs, or
yes.
Okay? Yeah. So you hadn't been writing or anything really over the past.
Yeah,
few
I mean, I was sort of writing all along, but I wouldn't really finish things. I didn't really feel like I had much to say, and something about doing those shows, just I don't know, something shifted my brain. I suddenly, I could like put some chords together and a melody. And next thing I knew, I had like a song title. And once you have a song title, then you can really, you know what you're singing about.
Okay.
Then the words just, come together out of that.
Okay.
And I didn't have good song titles for about 20 years. So, so it's been great.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So how did you come up with the name Cry for Help?
Mike, the bass player, threw that out there and everybody laughed. And I said, all right, I'll take one for the team.
So it was a sense of humor that got the name.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It felt about right, too. It's like, what are we, I'm not a kid. Why am I doing this? Right. What does it mean?
So there's no actual meaning besides just
I think for years I couldn't like come up for a reason like why should I be making music myself? I'm doing bar none. I always try to find bands that I think are better musicians than I am, or better writers. I mean, I felt like I was pretty good, but I felt like okay, I can find I have like a bar there, so I'd say most people on bar are better than me. Except maybe the Mendoza line.
Well, they kind of
they made great records and they are great writers.
Oh, they're amazing. I really started to get into them when I was approached to have them on, and it was like we were saying before everything, before we started recording it. I ended up having to revisit them because I knew of them, but I never really paid attention, never really dove into their music. And man, I missed out because their music is amazing. And I hear their live shows were pretty crazy.
Their live shows were generally a fiasco. But they're great people, and they're friends of mine to this day,
So with the first album, though, I wanted to ask you this. Both albums actually have a great power pop, 60s AM, 70s glam is what I've been, I was having a hard time kind of, I don't want to say labeling it, but trying to find a way to relate it to people who haven't heard it yet. Right. Maybe, listening to this podcast, hopefully. And I read that and I'm like, that's the perfect description. 60s AM radio, power pop, 70s glamish kind of rock. And the lyrics are really clever. I love the wild one, the visual of the CIA on the dance floor. That was just hilarious.
Tell me everything you think you feel. I'm watching your hips sway, but so is the CIA. They're out there on the dance floor, dreaming of a better day.
that I can't stop thinking about it since I heard it. So, and then
it's weird. That was all before, sort of Trump came into power. And there was all that kind of FBI intrigue. It's like, whoa. kind of felt a little. I mean, it's also just kind of James Bondy stuff.
And you've got that. The video for it is awesome too. I love that. And 44. There's a section on there where you get this amazing screeching feedback. That's the stuff that I love. All the noise. And that is that won me over at that point. But you guys all have really great tone on all the instruments. So you guys using vintage equipment, or is it new?
Yeah, I'd say so. I have an old Telecaster, actually, that I played in the individuals.
Oh, cool. That
Gene Holder from the DBs found for me back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And I still play that. I guess he's got a Fender Precision bass, I think. Mike.
Good choice.
Rick goes through different guitars. And, I think a lot of his, he just has really great, just a great feel. So whatever instrument he's playing on, he just,
Oh, the songwriting is great. The solos are amazing. I was blown away trying to get familiar with the band, and I was really, really blown away.
Yeah, he's a real rock and roll rock star.
Oh yeah,
It's funny, on one song on the new record, The Ride, which I wanted it to be a little bit different from a lot of the other songs, like really dry acoustic guitar, almost like Velvet Underground third album.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, you got to pull back on all the reverb and the effects. But then Rick, I wanted him to play like just like Chuck Berry licks, but I didn't want to play them too well. So while he was playing, we just kept like knocking the neck of the guitar, like swatting it, so that he was just kind of like barely holding onto the guitar. We're like hitting it.
Sunny on your side and shady on my side. It was shady on my side and sunny on your side. Well, ain't it time that we go for a ride?
He still played pretty well.
Oh yeah. So the first album came out. Did you guys do any touring for that, or were you?
Well, what we did was, we did a lot of. We toured all over New Jersey.
Yeah.
Suddenly we were part of like we found this whole circuit, and there's a lot of older people that they love going out and seeing music. Until the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a bunch of different places to play, and Montclair and Maplewood, and you met all these other bands, and we played with bands that we were friends with that were our age, like Speed the Plow, and it was great.
That's really.
And then everything shut down, and then it was like, well, now what do we do?
Yeah, but now when everything shut down, you were finished with the second album at that point, right?
Yeah.
So
except for this one song that we just added called Whistling Boy.
Okay. That kind of changed everything when everything shut down. You couldn't play out. You couldn't even really meet up and rehearse or anything.
We have not gotten together.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, other than Rick and I in the separate control rooms, in the isolation booths at the studio. And one kind of pathetic attempt to practice on Zoom, but Zoom doesn't see, you can't actually play in time on Zoom. Like there's a little bit of a delay between.
Yeah,
it was comical.
I've seen some other bands do these Zoom live stream things, and I'm like, whenever I've been on Zoom just for a podcast with more than one person, if I got 3 or more people, including myself on it, there is buffering and all kinds of issues. I don't know how these guys are doing this. I guess they're all recording it on their own end.
There must be some other platform that I haven't cracked yet.
Yeah,
or they're pre-recording it.
They may be, they may be recording each of their own
Yeah.
segments and then
And syncing it up.
yeah, because there's just no way that's actually being broadcast like that. You can't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. But it sounds good. It sounds impressive.
Yeah.
When the pandemic really started to spread, did that change how you guys had to approach releasing the album and promoting it?
I waited a long time thinking maybe this too will pass or something. And finally, I think just with the election and a lot of the songs, they were, they've all been, most of them were written, in the Trump era.
Yeah.
And they kind of reflect that. And I just felt like I got to get this out before the end of the year. I just don't want it in my life. I don't want 2020 in my life. I don't want this.
God, no.
I want to go beyond this, everything for this year. But, when Chris Stamey remixed Other Side of the Dream, that was kind of I wrote it kind of as like a old man apology to women, kind of a Me Too.
Yeah.
Grappling with that. But in the end, with this like sirens and in the video that I made, really, it definitely took on like, a little bit more of the feel of the pandemic. I mean, I live in New York City now, so, we got really hammered there in the beginning. And yeah, something about that feels like that.
Well, that's my favorite track off the new album.
I'm all suited up and I'm ready to go to the other side of the dream.
Love that song. But now, stepping aside a little bit, as a executive at a record label, what are you telling the artists on the label about the pandemic and their releases? How do you approach your label talent with pandemic news?
Well, I think we're generally we had this one artist, Winter, a woman from Los Angeles, and that was sort of in the pipeline already. So we just kind of, we did move it back, but she couldn't tour. Yeah, I remember the day, everything fell apart with South by Southwest, and just like we put all this effort into trying to get our bands there and have showcases and whatnot. It just all turned to dust. But Winter's been great. She's done things where she's gone and played for music licensing people.
Oh, cool.
Or, doing, people are doing these live stream concerts. And I have to say, the fans have stepped up as well. Like Bandcamp went from not really being that significant to really significant. Money gets generated from Bandcamp. Yeah. And there's that feeling of like, we want to support the artists. And that's fantastic, So from the label side, the streaming, if you actually had records that had a little bit of traction, they streamed on, there wasn't a loss. And there have been all kinds of problems with physical distribution even before the pandemic. So, that's a whole nother set of issues. Yeah,
but, I read a quote of yours saying that, the music business has been hit with a lot this year. The collapse of the physical music industry, the closing of record stores and pressing plant, and a key chemical factory burned to the ground. Yeah,
the place that makes the stuff that lacquers are made out of. You have to make a lacquer to cut the vinyl, right?
Okay.
And there's only 2 plants in the world that do it. And one of them burned to the ground.
Oh, gosh. Now there's one.
At the same time, you had a big pressing plant that we used since the beginning of Bar None shutting its doors.
Oh, wow.
Before the pandemic, they just were like, the owners of the building were like, man, we don't want to rent to your kind of smelly business anymore. We're probably going to turn into condos or something.
Oh, wow.
But, so... It's been, that's all been very trying.
So this whole pandemic has really kind of shifted everything really quickly then, because you've got it streaming, you got Bandcamp, there's TikTok.
Yeah, we have a TikTok hit with the Front Bottoms. We just actually got this crazy Gucci ad that just ran today.
Oh, wow.
These like Gus Van Sant made these Gucci movies.
Really?
Like 14-minute movies that each one, and I think there's going to be 2 Feely songs in it. There's definitely one, and I think there's a second. And we have another artist, Little Hag, who I truly adore. Asbury Park girl.
Okay.
And, she's cooking up all kinds of stuff. She's doing this thing with this, I don't know if you've heard about this place, I'm blanking on the name of it, but they take pre-orders and then you cut individual vinyl records.
Oh,
like
wow.
Each one is unique.
Oh,
you do a performance and it cuts. And then,
I hadn't heard of this.
And you can throw someone's name into it.
Oh my God.
So it's literally you are the only person who owns that record. It costs about $25 to get, a song, I think.
Oh my
But it's your, talk about a cool collectible item if the artist blows up. So
exactly. One of one.
Look for Little Hag, Whatever Happened to Avery Jane on Spotify or your whatever streaming service you like. Fantastic record, one of the best songwriters I've worked with in the 30 years I've been doing this.
Oh, maybe we should get on the podcast then.
Check her out.
I will. So, all right. So back to your new album, 2.
I appreciate you bringing it back to me.
I try. Sometimes it goes back to me. I don't know how that happens. Now, when you guys are writing the songs, are you the primary songwriter or is it collaborative?
Yeah, well, like the song Watch It Burn, I had all these parts, but they were it was like a Frankenstein monster. I couldn't quite, I just was like, this is the head, this is the left foot, and everybody sort of helped kind of smush it together and, come up with parts. And so that I consider that one a collaboration.
By the bedroom light, he dyed his hair red, took a little blue pill, and watched it go to his head. The cold cream came from the company store. He bought it for his wife, but he wanted a little bit more.
Most of the other ones are pretty much written by me. I might the song Come Back, we played that forever. We played that forever. It's really kind of, to get like a groove that really worked on that. And it's kind of to me, it almost sounds like, it's almost like there's like a little pop song in the middle of it with these long stretches that lead up to the pop song and then another stretch that leads away from the pop song. But to get that to all kind of, work together was really hard. And actually, Ray Ketchum, the producer, came up with a background vocal, like on the parts that go like, come on and show it. Mm-hmm. He came up with this high harmony part that just totally made that kind of congeal in a way that it hadn't up to that point.
I think it's a great song, and any song that mentions Mario Andretti, I'm all in on. So that's a great reference for me.
I had Betty and Veronica in there in an earlier draft. Didn't make the cut, but
oh man, see, I prefer Mario Andretti, but
actually, I guess it was Veronica and Betty rhymed with Mario Andretti.
Man, if you could have worked all of that in, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, this bridge too far.
The album is coming out in December.
December 18th. Yeah.
Okay, so what are you guys doing?
And as a record person, I would have never. You never put a record out in December, but who knows what even matters?
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe no one will really be aware of it and over time. I'm doing a bunch of videos, and maybe over time people will catch on to it, or I don't even know. But
well, that's the thing. This is all uncharted territory for everybody.
Yeah.
Who knew that this was going to happen, and places like Grubhub and Uber Eats were going to have to explode, you know, and having somebody deliver your groceries to you. I mean,
right?
Gosh, it's just a crazy.
I know. I get the farm to people box every.
Nice.
Actually, I'm finally shutting it down. There's just too many acorn squash at this point. But it's been great. It's been great for all summer, you know.
I want to do something like that, but I've got 3 teenagers. I can't afford what it would cost me to fill those people up with, by doing it that way. So I had stuff to do like Costco. I have to buy food in bulk still.
I'm so glad they like cereal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they like it whether they like it or not. I heard that Maxwell's either has reopened or is reopening. Is it?
It's literally got a new name, which I don't know what it is. It's going to be some kind of, I think, an Italian restaurant. So it's pretty much done unless. Okay. I mean, it did reopen, and I actually. It was funny. I went there the night I saw the show that Replacement's live at Maxwell's.
Yes.
You know, I was at that show, right?
Oh, wow.
Back in the day. So I thought, this would be cool. Like, I'll be in the same room and they're going to blast it. And it would be like re-experiencing the sonic, you know, thing from that day. But instead they played really quietly in the background. It was really depressing. But that one last thing to say, I'm a huge Replacements are one of my all-time favorite bands, and the new "Pleased to Meet Me" box set. Mm-hmm. There's like a booklet on there, and Tommy Stinson, who I understand from your podcast, made out with Shannon McCardle once.
Yes.
I didn't know that until today. But Tommy Stinson is wearing a Maxwell's T-shirt that I designed as an ad for New York Rocker.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, wow, that is so cool. Look at that. So that was kind of a happy thing to see that.
That is really wild. That's awesome. What else? So what else do we want to get out about this album? Is it going to be released in a physical form at all, or is it going to be more streaming?
You know, if things open up, and I kind of left it to the band. I said, I want to just do this, and we'll just do it. And then if we start playing shows again, maybe we'll do CDs or vinyl as well. We did vinyl and CDs on the first record,
right? Okay.
But you got to kind of. You got to kind of bunt, in this environment. I feel like Bar None is doing that to a certain degree. We're kind of, you asked that before. So mainly what we're doing with bands is suggesting, put out, some singles and things to keep your name out there and videos. And then when things open up, we can, drop more singles and then finally put out records, when people can go out and play shows and whatnot.
That's what makes it so tough for me, because I'm very hands-on, very tactile. I need physical copies of the music. If I pay for it and I get a download, I still don't feel like I own it. I hear you. I hear you. And I used to be a photographer, so I love the artwork that comes with the stuff. And I think it may have been the Mendoza Line show, but even if I get a JPEG with the download, I'm not going to stare at it at my computer. If I buy a 45 or a CD or a full record.
Well, I'll get you maybe I can get you a copy of the original Mendoza Line CD. Although no, there's going to be vinyl actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're putting the vinyl out themselves.
Oh, awesome.
We're going to distribute it for them. But that's the kind of thing that's happening. It's like, if a band really, do it yourself, and maybe we'll take it over when things open up. If you're out there doing shows, I don't know. It's all up for grabs, and just kind of. Well, listen, just to rehype your podcast a little bit. You've got a lot of great. I'm really.
Thank you.
Curious to dig into some of those things, because the Brian Coleman thing sounded really interesting. I don't know, there's a bunch of people there. Ted Nicely, just cool different people. But L1011, we did their first record.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't even make that connection.
They actually, they mention it like this movie Helvetica.
Yes.
That literally, because of that movie, it was about a typeface, right? It was like a documentary about the typeface Helvetica.
Yeah.
And we just did a one-off record with them, actually. We just had the one record.
Okay.
That was their first album.
Oh, okay.
But because that movie, that documentary was about a typeface, every advertising graphic design person watched that movie, and it had a ton of L1011 music in it.
Yeah.
And so suddenly they were like, oh, I'm working on this. It was always like sort of small ads, like with small budgets, but we just got like almost like hundreds of licenses on that because of that movie, because art directors were exposed to it through that movie. And then the band toured on top of that just endlessly.
Yeah. They
were just out there all the time. And the combination of those two things, and actually Pandora.
Yes.
Let's talk about this. Pandora totally seized on them. I think they were like the perfect storm of, they were indie rock, but they were kind of cool and slightly trippy, and there were no vocals, so it could kind of be like, I don't want to say it was genreless, but it was just very kind of unique. I don't even know how to describe that record exactly.
Yeah.
A little bit math rock. I mean, they ended up becoming more of like an EMD kind of thing as they went on, but there was just something like very open-ended about that record. And Pandora just, I described it as like a data ball. Like it just kept, like this ball of data just kept growing like the way you push a snowball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just this like giant data ball that would show up in everybody's feed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So if you liked the Grateful Dead, you'd get it. If you liked Unrest, you'd get it.
If you like New Order, you'll get it.
Yeah.
I got super lucky because I had Jack Bates on, whose dad is Peter Hook from Joy Division and New Order. And then he does live streams every week with his dad on Instagram. So I watch those, and Christian from L1011 was on there, and he was just commenting in the comments, and Jack was talking about, oh yeah, Christian from L1011 saying this and this and this, and I threw out there, I said, hey, maybe I should get L1011 on, and he's like, yes, we need to get that, and so he hooked me up with L1011. So it's just funny how I've had people on here and who know each other that I have no idea. Yeah. It seems like a very small world sometimes.
It definitely it all flows into each other, and if you're around long enough, you've got some connection to everybody almost. And you go in the supermarket and you hear songs and go like, oh yeah, it's weird.
It is. It's really strange, and it's really flattering and humbling to hear you say that you enjoy the shows. I really do appreciate it. That really does mean a lot.
No, I was very impressed, and like I said, I was laughing out loud at the Mendoza line. Like, oh my God!
Well, I've been lucky enough to hang on for a little over 2 years with this podcast. I've done some sports in the past. I've got I haven't released 150 episodes, but I've probably recorded at least that many. So.
Wow.
So I've got a bunch in the pipeline right now that I'm editing. So where can people find the album? How can they contact it? I'm sure, through Bar None's website and all, but.
Yeah, it's actually on, it's not on Bar None. It's actually through Rhyme and Reason.
Oh, I know somebody at Bar None, though, who might be interested in you.
Yes, it's through Rhyme and Reason, but it's on Bandcamp. It's on all the streaming services. And someday, hopefully, be etched into vinyl.
And is there a social media presence where people can follow you and get news?
Yeah, we got an Instagram page, Glenn Morrow's Cry for Help. I got my own Instagram handle, Leica Camera 2, Like Camera. It was not the smartest name probably, but Leica Camera 2.
I like this. I'm a photographer. I've always liked Leicas.
Yeah, a joke on Like a Virgin and Leica cameras.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for spending. Gosh, I've kept you for an hour at this point. It's been a blast, and talking about Maxwell's. I grew up in New Jersey, so it brought back memories and some of the really cool shows I
fantastic
got a chance to see there. So.
Well, thank you for doing this good work and getting the word out on all this stuff. So